It's easy to understand, it's bite-sized, and we're not sitting up here super polished and trying to look perfect on an Instagram.
Welcome back to Duo On Air. I'm Abby.
And I'm Courtney.
And we're the ex-agency turned entrepreneurial team that puts the Duo in Duo Collective. Our boutique organic marketing agency specializes in SEO, social media strategy, and branding.
We're an everyday pair of business besties / marketing experts obsessed with helping our community learn more about what it takes to run a business.
Which is why on Duo On Air, we're not holding anything back. We're giving you all the info we know about how to grow your business organically so you can be the confident CEO you were made to be.
And how to navigate life as a small business owner.
Whether it's on your own or with your best friend by your side, so grab your coffee
or your mimosa, we don't judge,
and settle in for a quick value-packed episode of Marketing Tips.
Welcome back to the Duo On Air podcast. This is episode number 49, and today we are sharing all of our secrets behind starting a podcast. And it's kind of funny, we're giggling as we started recording this podcast episode because we are actually not together today recording the podcast, which normally we're together, but given schedules and first time, given our schedules and everything, we weren't able to make it work this time. So I was talking to Abby and I was like, okay, we're doing this Zoom. And everybody knows that she's like, when you start recording, she's like, recording in progress. So I asked Abby, I was like, so should I have a little pause before I start diving into the intro? And she giggled and she goes, like a millennial pause. So I'm not sure if any of you know what the hell this is, but clearly Abby and I are millennials. So we're in this genre and we are old and whatever, but we're being made fun of by the younger ones that we just have this pause before, we hit record and we have a small pause because we're like, okay, we got to make sure we're being recorded. And then we start. So it's called the millennial pause and they're making fun of us millennials for
I first saw it on TikTok because, Gen Z out there loves to just make fun of the millennials. And also before Gen Z started making fun of us, we were being made fun of by the generation above us too. I feel like everyone's just attacking millennials all the time.
What were they singing?
It's because we're too nice. I don't know, because we're just millennials,
It's just easy to make fun of us, I guess.
We're just too nice, I think. I don't know.
Man.
But
so apparently
Google it, or not Google it, TikTok it. Sorry, that probably made me more of a millennial to say that, but search it on TikTok, search millennial pause, and you will see what we're talking about. And I went back and looked at our lives, our Instagram lives, to see if I did it or you did it. And we absolutely do it. We do it all the time because we're waiting for technology to process. And that's not a thing anymore. Technology is super fast. We don't need to wait for it. But I don't think this is something that will ever go away.
I just feel like that's just so weird. You start recording and just jump right in. I don't know. I don't think I'll ever be able to do it.
It feels too aggressive.
Gen Z, you can keep making fun of us. That's fine. Anyways, so back to our topic after our pause. We're talking about our secrets in starting a podcast. And it's funny because when we first sat down and when Duo was born, essentially, one of the things that we were both excited about was a podcast because people love podcasts. It's a great form of content. And we were like, we have to do a podcast. We have so much good content to serve for people. And we know that our audience is going to love it. And we were just excited about the new form of content that we never really got to experience in the agency world. I don't know about you, Abby, but I don't think I ever worked on a podcast project.
No, I don't think so at all. Yeah, that was not a thing. And also, I think back in, it must have been the first year of our business, but we actually purchased Jenna Kutcher's podcast course to help us get started on the podcast because we were so excited about it. And I think that sat in a folder for way too long until we were finally we're doing this. Let's do this.
Yeah. And the course was fantastic. And actually, even after the course, you were kind of like, oh, well, this actually seems kind of simple and not as complicated as we're trying to make it. So that's one of our first things is that it seems really intimidating, but it's not. It is one of the easiest forms of content that we create to date. We get together, we'll go through our process later, but we have found that this is the easiest piece of content. We just take what we've already put out there and we repurpose a lot of it. And all we're doing in this repurposing is basically talking about it to you guys through your headphones. And then we have obviously the show notes and all of that stuff that goes with it. But those are things that we're kind of already doing already. Blog posts, social content posts. So the podcast is just this other element that we add on top of it. And again, it's been super easy. You don't need a whole lot of setup. You don't need a whole lot of time. Actually, it goes fairly quickly, especially if you set aside time and kind of batch it. And I think the best thing about it is that you don't have to be as perfect. It's super conversational. That's the way we like to approach ours anyways. And I think that's what people really enjoy about it, is because it is conversational. It's easy to understand. It's bite-sized, and we're not sitting up here super polished and trying to look perfect on an Instagram grid or write the perfect blog post. We're just sitting here talking to you, spewing out all of this content.
Not worried about our hair, how we look,
No, you should see how we look right now.
You look cute. I don't. But
Thanks.
it's such a, I think it can feel so overwhelming. Like you need all this crazy software and you need to understand all this crazy stuff. And you don't, like, you really just you don't need that much to get started. And it's one of those things where it's a new way to reach people. And I think this podcast, you guys all listening to it, get to hear us, like us in action, how we talk, like how we think. I feel like there's certain ways that you can really only get to know a person through actually talking to them versus just reading a blog post, because a blog post can be finessed so many times. You can't quite always get the personality or the voice, but on a podcast, there's no denying who we are, and you either like us or you don't. And I hope that since you're listening to this, you like us, but
or
it's something
you like one of us. Maybe you don't like both of us, but at least you like one of us.
Oh man, don't ever share that, please.
I would be slightly curious, but
yeah, no,
as long as you guys all like
Courtney.
Abby. No.
Yeah.
That's like such a Minnesota
scary
thing. Like,
I know. Yes. Just please. I need to be liked. That's just like one of my toxic traits. There you go. Toxic.
Everybody just say you like Abby.
Thank you.
She needs it.
Please. Thanks.
But like you were saying, I think it's also how people take in content too, how people want content delivered to them, because I can personally tell you that I would prefer to listen to a podcast about, whatever the topic might be versus reading a long blog post about it, because that's just who I am. I'd rather listen because I know that when I'm listening, I can be doing something else, versus if I'm reading an article or a blog post, I have to sit down and actually dedicate that time to that. And I can't be multitasking. I love to kind of multitask, which maybe isn't always great, but it's just easier for me to listen and take in content versus sitting down and actually reading it. So it's all about capturing your audience in different ways with your content. You're going to have some people that love to read, which is great for your blog or your social content, but you're also going to have people that love to listen, which is great for a podcast.
Yeah. And we actually, speaking from an SEO perspective, we actually don't blog as much as we used to, like actually pure blogging, because we just don't, like right now, we just don't have the time for it. We actually have someone helping us create blog content, but we don't have the time to actually publish it at the moment, which feels crazy, but it's true. But our blog isn't suffering because all of our podcasts are repurposed as blogs. So we call them show notes in here, but they are being shared weekly onto our blog, and it's great content. We break everything out that we just talked about. And it's not difficult because we have the podcast to go with it. You have 2 ways to find us, whether you like to find us through the audio and the podcast method, or you like to find us through the written method. You can find us both ways. And one step up, this is 2023 goal of ours, you can also incorporate video. And if I wanted to show you how horrible we looked right now, like me, for instance, you could find us on YouTube, which we will. This is a 2023 goal of ours, is that this one thing that you do where you record your content could be used for a podcast, for YouTube, for your blog, and you can even take nuggets of it, which we'll talk about in a second, to share in social. So it's such an amazing form of repurposing content that saves you so much time. So
and that's not to
hopefully,
say that we're going to be showing up on video with like makeup and all dolled up. That's not the reason we
No.
we don't show up on video. We just don't. We're just not prioritizing that right now, and we're not prioritizing YouTube, which again, like Abby said, is a 2023 goal. But do not expect that we're sitting here like, oh, we don't look good, we're not going to show up on video, because you've seen us on stories. And I mean, any client that's worked with us, I think we've had multiple clients say like, you guys are always wearing baseball caps, and we're like,
look comfortable.
Sure
We've heard
we've
that
gotten
one.
that one.
Yeah. Which, we like to be comfortable. We like to wear baseball caps. We really need a branded baseball cap because that's all we wear. It's like our uniform. So
I was thinking about that the other day.
Another 2023 goal. Let's add that to the list.
Yes.
So if you're listening to this episode right now, you likely either are interested in starting a podcast, maybe haven't even considered it, but like it's in the back of your brain. Or maybe this is just a 2023 goal and you're starting one really soon. So we want to give you kind of all of our secrets of how we brought this to life, what we did to get started, our process, all of that great stuff. So to get started, honestly, you really do not need that much. You need a good microphone. There's so many of them out there. Honestly, any kind of mic is going to be better than just your computer mic. So it doesn't matter that you don't buy the most expensive one out there. We use the Blue Yeti mic, and those have worked amazing for us. We both have one. I think they're a little over $100. So it's not too crazy. But they're awesome microphones that we use a lot. With that, you also need any kind of recorder. So you can use Loom, Zoom. Court and I are just recording right now over Zoom with our microphones, so it doesn't need to be super complicated. You can even use the recorder on your phone. Like, again, they also sell microphones like USB-C. If you just Google it, USB-C microphones for your phone, you can just do everything on your phone. You don't need to go crazy. You can just do all the recordings right there. So those two things really help with quality. So making sure that you have high quality content is obviously very important. And then anything that is not high quality enough can be edited. So there's so many different editing softwares out there. Audacity is a really popular one. If you have the Adobe suite, you can use Adobe Audition. Riverside is another one. I believe GarageBand is completely free, and you can use that one on MacBooks. So there's so many out there. And if you do a few YouTube tutorials, you can kind of figure out how to edit it yourself. This is a process that I know a lot of people, and this was a hang up for us, was okay, we need to be able to afford an editor, because this is something that we're like, oh, like, yeah, we could learn it. We didn't want to. We just felt like it was going to add something else to our plate. And we are very much DIYers. Like, we love to do our own stuff. And it takes a lot for us to finally be like, we need to hire someone to help. Like, it takes a lot, but it's necessary.
Yes. I think Abby asked me, she's like, do you want to do this? And I was like, oh, I mean, I kind of do. I kind of want to learn it. I kind of want to do it, but I also just don't know if I'm going to have time. And I didn't want to fall behind on things. I didn't want to overload myself or stress myself. So I think at that point we were like, okay, we need to hire somebody or figure this out, which
absolutely.
Insert Glenn.
Yeah, right. Thankfully, my husband is amazing at video and therefore amazing at audio and editing. And he has a video software. So like for us, we actually don't use any of these editing softwares because he already uses a video software. I believe it's called Camtasia. So that's what he uses to edit everything. When we first did our recording, we were like, okay, this is like, we need to pay between $500 to $1,000 a month for a podcast editor. And we just kind of had to figure out like, okay, what are we going to prioritize in spending for our business this year? And he was sitting next to me and he's like, well, just send me what you recorded. Like, I just want to see. And literally within like 20 minutes, he had done our intro. He edited our first podcast. He was like, do you like this? And I was like, yeah, this is great. So you're hired?
Yeah, she texted me immediately and she was just like, Glenn can do this. Listen to it. It sounds amazing. And I did. And I was like, oh my gosh, he's hired.
Yeah, absolutely. So he is hired, and I told him he needs to give us a good month before he decides if he ever wants to quit.
I would
But
say a
yeah,
good like 3
yeah,
months.
yeah,
I'm not gonna let him
right.
off that easy.
I know, for real. So it's kind of amazing, just being able to like do that and leverage him. So, and who knows, you might have someone in your life like I had no, and I don't think he even knew he could edit software or edit podcast episodes either. But maybe you have someone in your life who can kind of help you dig into that. Or I've heard from so many people like using GarageBand and editing them yourself is something that you can absolutely learn. So please do not let that scare you away or hold you back from starting something, because I know you can build templates to like just, and as long as you record in a very similar fashion every time, those templates can help reduce the background noise and do all the other editing things that you need. And I know there was a whole module in Jenna Kutcher's podcast course all about editing. So I did not actually, full transparency, I didn't listen to that part because I knew that we weren't going to be doing it. So I saved myself some time. But I know that she has a whole section on that, and that would definitely be worth your dollars to invest in if it's something that you're looking at. So
I would
uh,
say
yeah.
another quality thing before we jump on to the next one, is the space that you're in. Just try to be smart about the space that you're recording in, because we've had a few places like we rented a place, which was really unfortunate, and the vent system or the AC system or something was incredibly loud, and it would kick in every once in a while, then it would kick off, and we were like, oh no, like this is not great. And I think Glenn had to even edit a lot of that out. I think that was like some of our first podcasts, and we're like, we're sorry. So
Yeah, I
now we
think it
make
was
sure
rough.
that, yeah, we make sure that we've just been doing them at each other's houses now, and we make sure that we're like in the basement where the ceilings aren't quite as high and the rooms are smaller, or in the office space. I know that some people record in their closets. So really it doesn't have to be this glamorous space. You don't have to rent a space out every time. You don't need a fancy podcast room. You just need to be in a quiet space, a space that doesn't have like a lot of echo to it, and you should be just fine.
Yeah. Yeah, we have been craving, just because like it's nice for us to want to get out of the house and like go and actually go somewhere and batch record for a day and like get lunch and like make it a thing and have fun doing that. But there is nothing in Minnesota that we know of. So if you live in Minnesota and you know of a podcast room or a podcast conference that we can book, we'd love to hear about it, because and also this is like maybe an opportunity if someone has space or if they want to start a new side business, like open up a podcast space, because
Yes, seriously.
we've looked at this and we've been like, it would be so fun, like once a month or once every other month, like just to book a podcast recording studio. And like Court said, we got bit in the butt on this the one time that we did it, because it really wasn't truly a podcast studio recording studio, and it was super loud, meetings on both sides of us.
Oh yeah,
It
we could
was
hear
really
that dude
something.
next to us.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was rough. And it was like I said, it was one of the first times we recorded, and we were so excited because we were like, this is just like such a cool thing. And then we were so stressed out because we were like, oh my gosh, we were like, do we pause when this thing kicks on? I don't know what to do here. So you want to make sure, like, do your research on the space that you're going to be doing it in, maybe even go visit it for like 10 minutes and just sit in that room and see what it's like, because yeah, it was just a little rough, and you don't want to be stressed out, especially if it's your first time recording and you're in a space that's just not ideal.
Yeah, absolutely. And check your mic. I'm pretty sure I had it backwards one time. That
Oh no.
caused a problem. So that can be fun. But yeah, overall, like a lot of the tools that you have can be semi forgiving. So don't worry about like small noises here and there. I mean, I live right next to the airport. Airplanes are flying over all the time. And most of the time you can edit that stuff out. Just like loud, drastic things like big old air conditioners turning on right above your head can
Right.
cause an issue. So, what you need, good mic, some kind of recorder, any kind of editing software. And then the next thing that you need to do is get a podcast host. So we use Podbean. This is essentially where all of your podcasts are going to be stored and hosted. I mean, it's just where they live. This is where you can see all the analytics of how many listeners you have a day, a week, a month, what episodes are performing great for you. What are the highest number of downloads, all of that fun stuff. So you need a podcast host. There's a lot of them out there. And again, we really love Podbean. It's been a great resource and for us to use. And I think it's pretty affordable overall just to implement that into like your overall spending of things that you need. It's alongside like all the other things like our CRM with Dubsado and Flowdesk and everything else. So get yourself a podcast host and then you'll need to set yourself up on all of the various platforms. So Spotify, Apple, Google Podcast, Amazon, all of the different things. Make sure that you're set up there. And this is something that we learned the hard way because we didn't hire an expert to help us set up our podcast, which I know they are worth every single penny if you can afford it. So definitely do it. We didn't at the time. So we didn't know that it can take up to a couple weeks to verify your RSS feed once you set up your podcast. So
Oops.
this is, yeah. This is something where thankfully for us, I think it happened really fast. Like I think it happened within a day or something,
It was
which
really
was
quick.
amazing. Yeah, it was amazing, especially since we forgot about it. But don't let that happen to you because I don't know if that's a common thing or if it just happened to like work for us during that time frame. Like not that many people were uploading their content or something. Don't wait until the last minute. A lot of people actually launch with a trailer. So they'll have like just some kind of like, here, meet me, like what I'm all about, what this podcast is going to be all about. It can just be a 5-minute quick little mini episode so that your RSS feed can connect with your podcast host. And then everything you can verify, everything's being pulled into Spotify, to Apple, to Google, and that your content is there and everything's there. And then moving forward, you can start posting your episodes. So that can be a really good strategy just to make sure that everything's set up, running efficiently, because you can't just set up your account without an episode. Like there has to be an episode first in order to have that RSS feed go through. So it sounds really old school, like RSS feed sounds like something that's super ancient, but definitely still relevant for the podcast world. So, that's really all you need, honestly, in terms of like the physical things or the digital things that you need. And then I'd say the next thing is just kind of to set up your goals. Like, how often are you going to release episodes? Start realistic too. Like, we've been doing this for almost a year, which is super exciting. We are coming up on that in like a month from this episode. Will be a year for our podcast, which is super awesome. But we have a goal to do more than one a week. And hopefully that will come to life in 2023. But we knew realistically we could post one a week. And so that's what we're doing. And that's great. Like it's better than not doing anything because you couldn't like hit this astronomical goal. I know a lot of people love to post like Monday, Wednesday or Monday, Wednesday, Friday, which is great and awesome, but until we have enough time to like create and batch content, we couldn't stick to that quite yet. So maybe in 2023 we'll be adding Wednesdays to the queue. So
we keep talking a lot about new things for 2023. We're gonna have to we're telling our audience this. They're gonna have to keep us accountable.
I know, please keep us accountable. And then plan out like your workflow and process. We're going to share a little bit of ours so that you can kind of see a sneak peek behind that. And then finally have a launch strategy. So this again, we have amazing, amazing people in our court who love us and help us. So thankfully we weren't in the dark on all of this. And because we love you and we want to help you, we will share with you some of the things that we knew were really important. So you need people to listen right from the get-go. So text like on your launch day, text everyone you know, like no joke, every single person, neighbors, family, friends, distant relatives, like everyone. Tell them to go listen to the podcast and write you a review because this will help you hit the charts. And that can be a really awesome thing to make sure that your content gets out there, gets seen by more people because people go to the charts to look at and see which podcasts they want to listen to, especially if they're searching for new podcasts to look at. So this gives you visibility because right now, especially at a launch, you don't have visibility. So do not be afraid to go out there and ask everyone to go listen and write a review.
We were definitely not afraid. I think Abby like crafted a text and all we did was copy and paste that to everybody else. So sorry, everybody that got that text. It wasn't personalized individually for you, but just make that text, copy and paste it, send it to everybody. I recently did this I think it was we wanted to win that podcast award just recently. And so we were asking friends and family again for support because that's what you do in scenarios like this for your small business. And they're happy to support you and be there for you. And I sent one out to all my neighbor ladies and it said, "Hey, family" at the top because I was copying and pasting so much. And I was like, oh, yep, clearly I'm copying and pasting because I just called you guys my family. But I'm like, but you're kind of my family. So
that's awesome.
Whatever.
People love to support too. So like never feel shy about that. Like people want to support you and they want to hear what you're doing and they want to cheer you on. So share it. Like this is an awesome opportunity. So it can feel kind of like nerve-wracking, but do it anyways. The worst thing is they don't respond to you, or I don't know. I guess the worst thing is they could say something weird, but then you can decide you don't want to talk to them anymore.
But I can promise you that has not happened to Abby or I. People are very supportive.
Yeah, never. So never be afraid about that. So that's really it. That's all you need to get started, which I know I'm long-winded, so that probably felt like a lot, but I promise and assure you it's not. We will break all of these down in the show notes too, so you can kind of steal these and add them to your workflow if you're planning on starting a podcast in 2023.
Yes. And then, so the next thing we're going to talk about is just our process on, after we have all of this set up, what does that process look like to do a podcast episode? So the first thing that we have to do obviously is source topics. So whether that be topics that we've already talked about on social or in a blog post format, or just any like our emails, wherever that might be, we can repurpose some of that content for our podcast. We've done that plenty of times. We've realized that we've put it out there in X form, but we haven't put it out there in podcast form. So we'll do that. We'll also source topics from some of the tools like Google Trends. Oh gosh, I'm kind of blanking here. What was you just recently talked about?
Exploding topics, right? Last week.
Exploding topics, Pinterest, your own social account and the people that you follow. So really you can source topics from literally anywhere. I think Abby and I sometimes just sit down too and we're like, what's new in the Instagram world, or like what's new in SEO, and we sit down and we talk about that topic. So sometimes
we ask our audience too.
We ask our audience. Yeah. Sometimes we're like, we talk about all of this stuff a lot. Are we missing something, or is there something you want to hear from us as far as, anything organic marketing goes or whatever? So there's so many ways that you can source different topics out there.
Yeah. The last time I think we did this too, you had posted just like a bunch of question stickers and we did them by like, or maybe I did. I don't even remember. We're the same person, but basically we posted a bunch of question stickers about like different topics and asked questions of like, what do you want to know about our business partnership? What do you want to know about, like being multi-passionate? What do you want to know about SEO? Like broke it all down and then pulled out all the nuggets from your questions. And if you participated in that, you're likely seeing your episode in the coming weeks pop in here because we want to create content for you. So like, please keep sharing that. But we also went back and like looked at what our top performing episodes were so far, which was just fun. One, it was fun to do because we noticed after we did that the first 3 were SEO, social, and branding. Like all 3 of our topics were the top 3. And I was like, whoa, this is really cool.
Yeah, that was really interesting.
And it's fun just to like make sure that like we're hitting every content pillar that of the things that we like to talk about and what we know our audience likes to hear. So that can be a really good way too, like not even sourcing topics from like all of these tools and asking your audience, but actually looking at your analytics and being like, okay, here's what's performing really great, regardless of platform. Like here's what's performing great on Instagram, blog, website, blah, blah, blah.
Absolutely. Yep. So then after we source out the topics, we bullet out the things that we want to cover in each episode. And when we say bullet, we are very rough here. We don't ever write out these episodes word for word because we want to keep it really conversational. We don't want to sit here and read a script. Or a lot of times when people read things too, I think they get like caught up on words, or they're reading it and then they screw up, and then you get scared and you get nervous and you start to just kind of derail. So we always make sure that we're not writing out a script for each podcast. We're just keeping it very bulleted, very simple. What are the topics within that topic that we're going to touch on? Who's going to talk about what? And then we have our episode essentially created. We always make sure to have our intro, which we say, welcome to the Duo on Air podcast, whatever episode it is. And then we just dive right into it. So the intro stays the same. The outro will every once in a while change that up. But if that's generic, we can just use that same one every time. So really just getting it kind of laid out so that you have a flow for your episode, but it doesn't have to be super rigid. And obviously you can go off course a little bit as long as you come back. And then we usually schedule a batch recording day, and we usually do this together. Like we said, today's a little unique because we're not together. It's a little sad, little tear. But it's so much easier to batch record together or not. We need to sit down. We need to dedicate an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever it may be, depending on how many episodes we want to crank through. And we just record as many episodes as we can. I don't think we ever have a goal going into it. I mean, we have every once in a while. It's kind of loose. Like we want to do 5 today or 6 today, but sometimes it gets to the point where we're like, and we're done because we're just talking a lot. So
I know I wonder what the most we've done is. If it's like 6
I want to say
feels like our
6.
max.
Yeah.
And I think it's even less with guests, because guests can feel really heavy. So I think 4 is kind of our max, which feels like a lot for guest podcast batching too. But we also focus more like, and you can decide this can be like one of your goals too, is like, are you going to have a guest only podcast? How long are your podcasts going to be? Because that can help you understand how much you can batch. For us, we try to keep ours to like 20, 30 minutes max. Like 15 sometimes is what we end up doing, which 15s are like nice and great. But sometimes like content just needs a little bit more. So it's good to have that goal in advance and then figure out how you can batch backing into that goal so that you know, like, okay, I'm going to batch 4 at a time and I am going to like do that once a month. Like then you're only recording 12 times a year. It's kind of amazing. And like if you think about like overall content creation and how much time you spend creating content on Instagram, and you can instead just spend 12 days a year prepping content for your podcast, like that's kind of incredible.
Yeah, it's really great. So yeah, just making sure that you're getting together and batching those. I think that's been super helpful for us because then we just have months of podcast episodes just ready to go. And they're really fun. Batch recording days are fun. We get together, we sit down, we talk to the microphone, we give the content to you guys, we order lunch or breakfast or whatever it might be, both sometimes. And it's just a fun day together. So
yeah. It's going to be super fun. Side note, it's going to be very fun that everyone's still going to be able to hear your voice when you're on maternity leave, and we're going to have to batch all of this content.
Oh, wow.
Batching might not be fun, but it's also like you can take a break. Like you can take a break. You can take a month off. You can go like do things, not be around, and your content can still be living and performing for you and working. So that part is kind of cool in general, whether it's a maternity leave or a vacation.
Right. Exactly. Yes. It's already done for you.
Yeah.
So the next thing, we briefly touched on this earlier, but editing. So after you have your recording days, you have to either sit down and edit it yourself or give it to your podcast editor. In our case, it's Glenn. So we are super lucky to have him. So Abby probably knows his schedule a little bit more or how he does it behind the scenes, but we just batch record and I think we let him know how many we got done and he does his thing and he's great.
Right. I know.
Great employee.
He can batch edit, but I do have to say he tends to edit on Sunday evenings, which I don't care. It's not my job. But it is something where I know like you can batch edit things just like you batch record things. So if you want to spend one day recording and editing in the same day, or schedule 2 separate days, like a recording day and an editing day, it's all definitely doable. Just kind of backing into again that goal of how often you're going to share your content.
Yeah. How quick is he at editing? Did you say like 20 minutes?
Oh, yeah, or less. Kind of depends on the episode. But it's funny, there was a couple where he's like, "Wow, that one was horrible." Like not
Oh
us
no.
horrible, but like horrible quality-wise, which I think was like one where I think my mic was backwards. So this is one. So for anyone who listened to the multi-passionate one, I think it was like 7 signs that you're a multi-passionate entrepreneur. We were so excited about this episode. Like we love that episode, but the quality is not top notch. So if you've listened to that one and you're still here, we appreciate you. Thank you.
Maybe we'll have to re-record that one
We
and
might.
do it better.
We might.
Side note, does he ever say anything about me? Is he ever like, "Oh my God,
Oh,
Courtney, like speak up," or
yeah,
like
every time.
stop saying
Every time.
but.
No, but sometimes
Uh,
does sometimes tell us, and this is like now we're like breaking down the secrets. Ooh, we should have Glenn, like a tell all with Glenn.
yeah, he
But
needs to be a guest.
he does say that sometimes we have too much space between our words, and then his biggest job, and usually what takes up too much time with recording, is finding that 6-second intro clip. So if you guys, and you likely don't notice this, but however you set up your like template for podcasting, like we have this little 6-second clip, then we have our little music, and then we have our intro. So he is tasked with finding that 6-second clip, and he is so creative at it sometimes. Like he edits together multiple sentences, which I'm like,
Are you
dang,
serious?
yeah, it's
I
impressive.
always thought it was just like one fluid sentence.
Sometimes it is, but sometimes he's like, I really couldn't find a good one. Like it's not, so I had to like clip
He's
it
like,
out,
"You guys
take up
didn't have
space,
one
or
good sentence in that episode." And we're like,
no.
"Whoops."
There's only been a couple of times where I'm like, you picked a clip that has nothing to do with the episode. Did you even listen to this? And he's like, not really. So
Oh
he's so
no.
good at editing it and templating it out that he doesn't even have to listen to every word. So furthermore,
That's
once
awesome.
you figure it out and you know how to edit and what to look for in the software and the audio, the easier it's going to be for you, and like less timely the process is going to be.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Too funny. All right. Well, after Glenn edits then and hands it over to us, thank you, Glenn. We just have a few more things that we have to do to get it live. So Abby scheduled it in Podbean. And then Abby also creates the show notes for our blog. And then I jump in and I create the social graphics that we usually share in our Instagram space. And a nice tool that you can use is Wave, WAVVE. This was something that we learned about in Jenna Kutcher's course as well. So if you follow us on Instagram, you'll notice that our podcast posts are a carousel, and the first is an image of either us or something relevant to the content that we're talking about. And then you swipe, and then it's the headline and a little snippet of what you will hear in the episode and the episode number. And then you swipe one more time, and that's that wave template. So that's actually you hearing our voice and the words kind of popping up on screen. And that is what that wave template does, is it allows you to put that podcast episode into that template and then have it have those words pop up on the screen as we're talking. So it's just kind of a fun tool to be a little creative in the Instagram or the social space, and to give your audience, you guys, a little snippet of what we might be talking about.
Yeah. And when you schedule it too in Podbean, and then after you've scheduled it to go live, there's a little embed button, and you just embed that content into your blog so that your podcast little preview link shows up there so that people can actually listen to your podcast episode directly from your blog, which is really nice for people who find your blog on Google or on Pinterest, because then they can just listen to that episode right there and they don't need to go anywhere else, like go to Apple, go to Google, whatever that may be.
Yes.
So yeah, that's it. I mean, that's kind of the way we do this and how it's brought to life. It's something where once you get started and you get past all of that, okay, what mic am I going to buy? What recorder am I going to use? How am I going to edit? Like once you get through all of that, it really just kind of runs itself. It's so seamless. It's such an easy thing to add into our business. and just something that we took way too long to get started on. And now it's not going anywhere, that's for sure, because it is like such an easy piece of content just to continue doing. So best piece of advice that we'd have is stop looking at this as a holistic thing and just make it a checklist and do it one by one. Every day, give yourself a task. If today is buy a microphone, then just do that. And then the next day, you can focus on figuring out how you're going to record. Like, take this as a checklist, step by step by step. And then before you know it, you'll be at the end and you'll be recording your first episode. If you like this episode, please be sure to share it with a friend and subscribe so you don't miss any new episodes dropping every Monday. Plus, if you haven't already, please go ahead and leave us a review and don't hesitate to share any new episode ideas. We absolutely love hearing from you and creating this content for you. See you next week.